I'll call the meeting back into order. Nancy, I just need to ask, do we comment on our last discussion at this point, or do I go through the Pledge of Allegiance and get into matters?
You could start the meeting and then proceed with the coming out of executive session.
Okay. We'll begin with Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We just had a executive session in regards to the Roars Newman Block property at Tax Increment Finance District 1902. Do I have a motion?
Nancy, will you summarize? I want to make sure we get the wording right, and I'll be willing to make the motion.
Looking for the developer agreement. If you'll give me just a minute, please.
Turn our mic on.
Needs to move it in front of your mouth. Yep.
I believe the motion coming out of executive session is to direct the city attorney to provide a notice of default in accordance with the terms of the developer agreement.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Garrig?
Yes.
Strand?
No.
Mahoney?
Aye. Library. The summer story time at the Fargo Public Library will be offered Tuesday from June 7th through July 26th. At the main library, and Wednesdays, June 8th through June 27th at the Carlson Library. Storytime is an opportunity for families to spend quality time together sharing stories, learning school readiness skills, and preparing for a lifelong love of reading. All story times are open to children 2 to 6. There will be a free Friday family movies at the Carlson Library, June 10th through August 19th. The library will have a booth in the upcoming Midwest Kid Fest, June 10th, and hosted by the Fargo Parks District at Island Park. Librarians from the Children's Services will attend to spread the word about the library's literacy resources and the Summer Reading Challenge. Planning. The city is seeking proposals from local artists for new artwork for panels in the exterior of Fargo City Hall Commission chambers. The theme of the art is Fargo, past, present, and future. The city and its Arts and Culture Commission encourage local artists, culture bearers, and other creativity persons to participate in opportunities to enhance the city's quality of life and integrate public art into public spaces. More information about the request for proposals is on the city's website. The deadline for proposals is June 22nd at 4 p.m. Tonight, we have a short video that takes us behind the scenes of the Fargo Forestry team as they celebrate Arbor Day 2022 and for being designated Tree City USA. Enjoy.
On Arbor Day, the people of Fargo commit themselves to the continued health of our inventory of city trees. And now, therefore, be it resolved that Dr. Tim Mahoney, Mayor of Fargo, proclaims May 20th, 22 as Arbor Day in the city of Fargo and urge all citizens to become more aware of the importance of our urban trees to the well-being of our city and to demonstrate their concern for future generations.
Around 2.3 million types of animals rely on trees to survive, and up to 150 species of animals go extinct every day because of deforestation. That could add up to as much as 10% of animals being lost every decade.
It is so important for us to be educated about our Earth and what we can do to help it. Without trees, nothing on Earth could survive. That is why we are out here today planting trees to protect the animals, save the environment, and help ourselves.
There are 54 communities in the state that are considered Tree City USAs. And you get that designation by having 4 standards. One is you have a tree committee that oversees the planting of trees in public areas. You have a tree ordinance, some sort of law that helps regulate what kind of trees go where, because you don't want to plant the wrong kinds of trees. You have a community forestry program that's supported by a budget. And you also have an Arbor Day celebration, which is what we're doing here today. Being a Tree City USA is a recognition of the importance that trees play in our communities. And I think we all agree they make our communities much more vibrant. They have many social and environmental benefits as well. They improve water quality, they clean our air, they beautify our homes, they protect us from winds. And with that, I want to congratulate the City of Fargo and Fargo Parks for 45 years as a Tree City USA.
It's very exciting, that we've been recognized for that many years, but to be part of that experience as the city grew and the department grew as well with staff and how our neighborhoods and our urban canopy has really developed in that time frame. It's pretty impressive. Trees make a difference in our neighborhood. It's really a place where we want to be, and you may not recognize it, but we are attracted to a natural environment, and we need to have greenery and trees around us to try to make these new neighborhoods. We spend a lot of time pushing for new trees to get established. We want to be prepared for what happens today, tomorrow, 15, 20, 50, whatever years down the road. We want our urban forest to be prepared for that. We're going to have removals. We're going to have new plantings. These are living organisms that we deal with, and trying to maximize how long they can be here by basic maintenance, early pruning. We are preparing those trees to be street trees for their entire lives as best we can. We can be in Tree City USA for another 50 years. We have been meeting the minimum standards and exceeding those standards for nearly 45 years.
Very good. Is there a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
I so move.
Continuing items 27H and 27I to the 5:15 Monday, June 13th meeting. So moved by Pepcorn. Was there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the May 16th, 2022 regular meeting?
So move. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 25?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
Preston?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. We have resident comments this time. We have 4 speakers. Sarah Arner, excuse me. J.C. Arner. Brandon Krieger, geofencing.
Good afternoon. So I'd like to talk about geofencing that was discussed last week regarding the Uber, Lyft, or taxi services picking up and dropping off in downtown. Well, I don't disagree with the current plans, but I also understand where Commissioner Garrick was coming from with pulling people away from bars who are already intoxicated towards areas of business and residents. My thoughts leaning into the use. My thoughts about like to suggest would be thoughts would be leaning into use of parking garages. Fargo downtown parking is free at night, so I don't see there would be an economical issue. But I'm going to suggest that either the top level or lower level have spots reserved for Uber, Lyft, or taxi pickup or drop off in those parkades. A couple of benefits I do see, and there are negatives, but a couple of benefits. It doesn't put businesses at risk or residentials at home of vandalism or crime. Puts bar goers in well-lit and camera-friendly spaces for public safety. Keeps street congestion lower than with the current proposed plan. A winter pickup and drop-off with the snow would be a no factor. Parkades are not full of capacity and would be great use of the space we have. And the police can be located near the garages to provide any support or assistance. Recently, I did share my proposal with the community, and I've gotten a lot of feedback on my plan, as well as one that was presented 2 weeks ago. Many of the residents weren't aware of this possibly coming to fruition. Both my proposed suggestion and both the currently proposed downtown plan are currently not favored among residents that I've talked to. Some of the things they listed were safety, traveling away from the congested bar areas to not busy areas. Also the whole traveling factors are really many residents aren't really in favor of. I don't think there's a perfect plan, but please make sure that there's a way for feedback to be expressed more directly to the police in regards to how the city is looking at geofencing. Thank you.
Christopher Cohn?
Yes, I'm Christopher Cohn, a Fargo resident. I want to talk about the wildlife management program. First, I'll note that the meetings between the parties in recent months have excluded the public and Fargo residents. Although in this new proposal, the 3 most heavily used parks have been removed from the program, the problem remains in the rest of the river parks, city-owned areas along the river and private lands, that hunting is not safe and not compatible in areas used by the public. We turned in a petition of several hundred signatures opposed to the wildlife management program. The signs are set to be changed. They read in part, "Enter at your own risk." How can that be changed if it remains true? The attached material for this new program includes a questionnaire regarding the effectiveness of hunting and controlling urban deer numbers. There are a variety of claims, most without citing any data. It cites the Bismarck annual archery hunt in support of the hunts, but that hunt does not include city parks. It claims hunts are effective at reducing local deer numbers, but at the Wildlife Management Program public meeting on August 7th, one of the participants admitted that the deer continue to migrate in across the ice on the river during the winter. By the way, they also just swim across the river or walk across when there's droughts. So they keep infilling no matter how many you take out. It also refers to complaints from homeowners regarding damage to deer, landscaping damage by deer. I spoke to Fargo Parks forester Sam Damara, who told me that in the parks along the river, there's almost no deer-caused damage to landscaping and no complaints to the park district from residents that live along the parks by the river, where the deer are concentrated, including Lindenwood Park, which, by the way, doesn't have any hunting. For deaths due to deer vehicle collision, it cites national data, not local data. So I got data from the North Dakota Department of Transportation Data Services Division and found there are almost no deer vehicle collisions near the river parks and properties. Instead, collisions are found throughout the city and usually on streets and roads with high speeds. At the Sandhills Range, they don't allow anyone downrange during archery hunts. So why would the city allow that here? They're asking that the program go forward for another year without giving any details. Thank you.
We're not quite at 5:15. I'll take item 34, application for property tax exemptions for improvements made to buildings for David Hubner, 10054 4th Street North. It's a 5-year exemption. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Go to public input. Steve Sprague. To application for transfer of Class AB alcoholic beverage license from license to license holding Pickled Parent to do business as Bottle Barn off Broadway to be located at 618 2nd Avenue North. Steve Sprague to explain.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight we have transfer of an alcoholic beverage license. It is an AB alcoholic beverage license that was previously used at Pickled Parrot. The intention of the applicant is to use this solely as the off-sale side of it, just the B side of the license. There were some questions regarding the operation of the business at the liquor control meeting. Mr. Wold, the applicant, was able to answer those questions. And eventually, and we had some discussion, but eventually the liquor board made a recommendation of approval. And that's what's in front of you tonight.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this transfer? Anyone wishing to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Commissioner Garrick.
Can the A and the B be separated, or is this an AB license?
It's an AB license. He's choosing to operate with just the B. We have one other that was similar to this. That's the Happy Harry's on 52nd. They acquired the AB license from Rose Creek, from the golf course, and then moved that license over there.
What's the cost of the AB license from the city?
From the city, AB $150,000. We have not issued an AB license in well, the whole time I've been here.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item B, Magnum North Edition, approval recommended by Planning Commission, zoning change from agricultural to general industrial. First reading of the rezoning ordinance and a plat of the Magnum North Edition. Donald Crest to explain.
Good evening, Commissioners. Donald Kress of the Department of Planning and Development. I'll be presenting the next 6 items. These-
You lucked out.
Yes, sir. These items include ordinances which were prepared by the City Attorney's Office. As the Mayor has stated, our first item here is Magnum North Edition from Magnum Trucking Company, who will be developing it. This is located along 19th Avenue North. Just to locate it, here's the North Dakota Horse Park and the Mid-America Steel facility here, and some detention basins, 45th Street North. So it's this large property here. The plat, the site looks like this from the ground here. This is 19th Avenue here. So looking at it at about mid-block, and then here we're looking across the scenic detention basin there at the site, which is undeveloped. That's Mid-America Steel in the background. The plat creates 1 lot for industrial development. The current zoning is agricultural, as indicated by the gray. The proposed zoning would be general industrial, which matches the adjacent zoning and also is consistent with the land use designation of the 2007 growth plan for this area. The applicant, Tony Uckel of MBN Engineering, is with us this evening and may wish to address the Commission. The Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in the staff report and shown on the screen. This concludes staff's presentation for Magnum North Edition. Thank you, Commissioners.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak about this rezoning? Anyone present who wants to speak to it? If not, I'll close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Preston, do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item C, Laverne Second Edition, 32nd Avenue North and 2867 45th Street North. Approval recommended by Planning Commission on 3/1/22. Zoning from agricultural, limited industrial, and public and institutional. First reading of the rezoning ordinance and a plat of Laverne Second Edition. Donald Kress.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Going just across 45th Street from where we were a moment ago, this is the proposed Laverne Second Edition. This is Laverne's edition down here. The proposal, as the mayor has stated, is a plat and a rezone. This is what the site looks like here. 45th Street is just behind us here. Here's County Drain 40. Again, looking southeast here. Here's the existing Laverne's edition here. And then standing on the opposite corner, looking northeast, this tree line separates the property approximately from the NDSU property adjacent to it. The plat creates 33 lots in 5 blocks. Lots 1 and 2 will be owned by Southeast Cass Water Resources District. Lot 3 will be owned by the City of Fargo as a detention basin. The current zoning is agricultural. The proposed zoning is limited industrial for most of the lots and public and institutional for the lots that are owned by Cass County and the City of Fargo. There's no slide for this, but there is also an airport proximity agreement, which is a standard agreement between the city and property owners for properties that develop near Hector Airport regarding property owners acknowledging the aircraft activity and noise related to the nearby airport. Approval of this agreement is included in your approval package, in the approval motion for the overall packet. The applicant, Brian Pattengale of Houston Engineering, is with us this evening and may wish to address the Commission. The Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in the staff report and shown on the screen, and city staff appreciates the cooperation of Southeast Cass Water Resources District in reviewing this plat with us. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, Commissioners.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this rezoning? Anyone present who wants to talk about the rezoning? If not, we'll close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So move, and then I have a question.
Second.
Second. Garrick? Question?
Yes,
So Donald, the Riley's Acres is where from here? It's on the kitty corner from this
Riley's
lot?
Acres.
North.
So yes, ma'am. It's up here.
So
this would be 32nd Avenue if it went through, and
Okay.
then Riley's Acres starts here.
And it looks like residential is on the growth plan for both west and north of this lot? Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So the green space will hopefully buffer the industrial from?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, there's, as you see, there's a considerable space here. Just,
Okay.
and then there'll be a levee then too, beyond that. So there'll be a levee eventually built in here, as I understand it.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Roll call?
Preston,
Aye.
Garrick, Pepcorn,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Aye. Item D, Christensen, 32nd Avenue South, Second Edition. Approval recommended by Planning Commission on 4/5/22. Zoning change from general commercial and limited industrial with conditional overlay to general commercial with conditional overlay. First reading is rezoning ordinance and a plat of the Christensen, 32nd Avenue South, Second Edition. Donald Crest to explain.
Thank you, sir. Moving down to South Fargo, the Christensen 32nd Avenue South, Second Edition is located here at 32nd Avenue South and 36th Street here. This is the intersection of 32nd and I-29. The site has changed since this went to the Planning Commission a few months ago. This picture was taken in March. This was Fargo Tractor. That was before the Planning Commission. The lower photo was taken last Friday here. This shows the site out there. Obviously, the buildings have been demolished, so the site is vacant at this time. The plat creates 4 lots, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And there is an access easement that runs down this part of the plat here. That's these 2 dotted lines to allow these 2 lots to take access because they don't have direct access for 32nd Avenue. The other lots have both street access and the easement access. The subject property is currently in 2 zones. The red portion of the property is zoned general commercial. The grayish portion is zoned limited industrial with a conditional overlay. The proposed zoning will have the entire property be limited industrial, or with general commercial with a conditional overlay. And the applicant and staff have worked on that conditional overlay, which limits some uses and provides design guidelines for the development of this commercial property. The applicant, Chris Mack or Blake Carlson, apparently. Oh, okay,
Kevin
sir. Okay, sir.
Christensen.
Is here. Thank you, sir. And may wish to address the commission. The Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in the staff report and shown on your screen. This concludes staff's recommendation. Thank you, commissioners.
Donald, do you know what they're going to put in that space?
I'll let the developer talk to that, sir.
Okay. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to the public? Kevin, do you know what you're putting in there? Okay. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to the public about this rezoning? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Second.
Kind of being the same 2 each time, huh? Any discussion?
Moving it along.
Roll call, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Garrick,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Aye. Item E, annexation of property located at 6688 45th Street South on the northwest quarter of Section 10, Township 138 North, Range 49, west of the 5th Principal Meridian, Class County, North Dakota. First reading of the annexation ordinance. Donald Kress.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. This is map's a little busy looking here, but we tried showing it this way. The areas that are cross-hatched in white are outside of the city limits. This is an area where the city limits have rather complex area here. So just to illustrate this, these areas are outside the city limits in our extraterritorial jurisdiction. The black cross-hatched indicates the area proposed to be annexed. Subject property is located on the south side of 64th Avenue here, east of 45th Street. The property is contiguous with existing city limits. It is adjacent to 2 arterial streets that are currently under development. And it is within the 2007 Growth Plan's 20-year development horizon. And a portion of this annexation will be platted as the Cubby Ranch Second Edition, which is the next item on our agenda. I couldn't actually get out there. This is as close as I could get to take a picture here this afternoon. Here is North Dakota State College of Science Career Academy under construction. This line here is about 64th Avenue and 45th Street over here. The intersection's about out here. And utilities are going into that, and those roads are rapidly being completed. The annexation here again indicates an area of approximately 42 acres. The applicant, Don Dabbert of Dabbert Custom Homes, is with us this evening and may wish to address the commission. The Planning Commission's role in annexation process is to review the proposed annexation and with the applicable growth plan. At their April 5th meeting, the Planning Commission did find the proposed annexation consistent with the 2007 growth plan. Commissioners, if you do wish to move forward with this annexation, we ask that you use the motion on the screen there. The city attorney tuned up our wording on the motion a little bit there earlier this week. So if you wish to go forward, use that motion. That concludes staff's presentation on this annexation, sir. Thank you.
Is there anyone in the public who wants to speak to this annexation? Is there anyone who wants to speak to the annexation? I'll close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Also move, and then I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
Moved and seconded, so the same famous two. Question, go ahead.
Donald, so if you go back to the graphics, that one.
Yes, ma'am.
This is really starting to look like a patchwork. And I don't have any trouble with the current request, but trying to understand what is going on here. The annexation process doesn't necessarily influence property taxes or specials or anything else, does it? And why is there such a patchwork?
Well, I'll start from the beginning here. So this is interstate right-of-way, which hasn't been annexed. These two areas here, when we did the Sanford annexation a couple of years ago, we annexed this area, which is now the Sanford Fargo Parks sports facility. We did also annex this area here. This is going to be part of a greenway and drainage way that goes through there. Working with these property owners, they were willing to let this be annexed at the time, but they wanted to hold on to those and keep them outside of the city at this time.
And maybe if I can interrupt, that's my question. What is the motivation of the owners to keep these plots or these lots outside the city?
They could have several motivations, ma'am. I don't recall exactly what theirs were.
So it's not property taxes or specials?
Again, I don't know.
Okay.
The taxation, I don't believe, results
change.
until it develops.
Nicole can explain it.
Yes.
There's a rational reason why they don't want to be annexed. Nicole Crutchfield, please.
And Brenda might be following me.
Okay.
Yes, taxes could go up or specials could get applied. There's a series of, I don't want to speak on behalf of the city assessor, but there's a series of leverages that could be applied based on a number of qualifications. So it's one of the factors.
What concerns me about this is leapfrogging. I mean, that's really what's going on here.
Yeah,
to a certain degree.
Absolutely. And I think for the record, we would not generally be supportive of an annexation without a proposed development. So if this next item wasn't a plat in front of you to talk about how this land would be used, we would not be supportive of a annexation right now.
Brenda, did you have anything else?
No, I think Nicole touched all those topics. The issue is, in regards to deferrals, they would have to ask for a deferral if they were inside city limits, because even annexed and unplatted, we can assess that property. So I know that's one of the issues. And then they do talk about the increase in property taxes also. And then sometimes the struggle is just where that land, owner of the land is at that time. And so, on the west side, you have the land owned by Fred Hector, and on the east side was the land owned by Brandt. And so I think sometimes it's an issue of where those property owners are at that time also.
Roll call vote.
Preston?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item F, Covey Ranch, Second Edition, approval recommended by the Planning Commission in 4522, Growth Plan Amendment on a portion of the proposed Covey Ranch Second Edition with medium density residential and high density residential at the proposed school. Zoning change of AG to a public and institutional with conditional overlay. First reading of rezoning ordinance and a plat of the Covey Ranch Second Edition.
Thank you, sir. So this is should look familiar from the last item. This is a portion of the larger area that was just an annexation item here, located again south of 64th Avenue. This is 43rd Street here. This is North Dakota State College of Science Career Academy going under construction. same picture we had the last time there of the location. There was a growth plan amendment to this, which goes along with the zone change in the plat. And this is really more of a refinement than an amendment. You may recall back in August of last year, there was a large amendment to the 2007 growth plan for this whole area, but schools were not specified on that map. So we went through the growth plan amendment process to identify this as an area for a school. And that process is indicated in your staff report. The plat creates 2 lots down here and dedicates a little extra right-of-way for 43rd Street. The current zoning is agricultural, and the proposed zoning is public and institutional. There's a short conditional overlay, which is included in your packet, which just eliminates some ordinances from being, or some uses from being allowed under that zone that would not be appropriate for the neighborhood. The applicant, Don Dabbert of Dabbert Custom Homes, is with us this afternoon, may wish to address the commission. The Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation for this item. Thank you, commissioners.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this rezoning? Is anyone present who wishes to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Which school district?
This is a private school, sir.
Private school, okay. Roll call vote.
Preston?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item G, West Track, 3rd edition, approval recommended by the Planning Commission on 2/1/22. Zoning change from general commercial with PUD to to general commercial with PUD, plan unit development, and limited industrial with additional overlay. First reading of the rezoning ordinance and the plat of the West Track, 3rd edition. Donald Cress.
Thank you, sir. Our final item here tonight is the West Track 3rd edition, located here on 34th Street and West Track Drive in South Fargo. Under the label subject property is the Cass County Jail for a location on this one. Our photographs are actually taken from the point of the property instead of the street. So just looking south and westerly across the property, it's undeveloped, as you see. The plat here creates 4 lots, 1, 2, 3, and a very small number 4 up there. Lot 1 is going to be a zone general commercial with a planned unit development. This was a project that was approved a couple of years ago by your commission for a residential senior housing project. So that lot is going to get a little bit larger. Lots 2 and 3 are zoned for limited industrial, and they will have a conditional overlay on them to buffer any effects or mitigate any effects of industrial development. And lot 4 is just being rezoned to limited industrial. That lot is actually there to resolve apparently as surveying error. That lot will be conveyed to Cass County, who owns the adjacent property here as part of the jail project. The current zoning here is agricultural and general commercial with the PUD. The zoning looks like this, basically what I just explained here. With the GC, the LI, with the conditional overlay, and the small lot up here. The applicant's representatives, Tony Uckel of MBN Engineering and Nate Bomuth of Goldmark, are with us this evening and may wish to address the commission. And Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation for our final item tonight. Thank you, commissioners.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this rezoning? Anyone present wants to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye.
Thank you, commissioners.
Donald, excellent job. You got it right through that.
Thank you, sir.
Item H, Renaissance Zone Project in the Great Plains Block 3 Venture for a new construction project at 225 4th Avenue North and 419 3rd Street North. Who is?
Continued.
It's continued.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's continued.
So was I.
So was I?
Yep.
Okay, we got those done. How about Jay? Go for Jay. Okay. Application filed by Amity Technology for a property tax exemption for a project located at 401 27th Street North, with its application to use operation, manufactured, and storage of a new product called Cop Chaser for dairy farmers. Jim Gilmore to explain.
Thank you. This is an application recommended for approval from your Economic Development Incentives Committee. The information includes a letter from the Department of Commerce stating that this is a primary sector business. They would be using an existing building for this. Their property tax savings would be approximately $28,000 a year each year for 5 years. The business would create 5 new jobs in the first year, would be up to 15, or an additional 10 by year 3, and an additional 5 by year 5. The jobs would be paying $21.50 an hour. The score that this application received was 138. The minimum is 120, so it was about that. What I'd like to do is have Ryan Oshheim from the from the EDC give a brief introduction of the project, and then we'll hear from the business owner. Ryan?
Thanks, Jim. Mayor Mahoney, members of the commission. So Amity, probably a name that you're familiar with in terms of the manufacturing that they do in the region, a global ag equipment innovator and manufacturer. They are looking at a new line of business, a new product development, fairly large, substantially sized equipment. Currently outgrowing their current footprint and require additional space to take on that line of business. They're doing some of the work for one customer. They're currently having to send equipment and components to South Dakota to be welded and fabricated, and then sent all the way back up to Fargo. So this new building would allow them to onshore some of that work. They'd also be adding a powder coating capabilities, which is a supply chain service in the market that is currently also underserved, and would create a platform for other potential manufacturers to utilize their powder coat capabilities. So Jim kind of mentioned all of the jobs and the impacts. It's a company that's paying substantially in terms of property taxes in the market, currently paying near $100,000 in existing property taxes on properties they own. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brian Dahl with Amity for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I'd field any questions.
Any questions of the Commissioner? Commissioner Garrick.
Brian, thanks for growing here in Fargo. If you don't get the incentive, are you still going to move into this building?
I'd say a lesser chance. And I'd also say that we've been at the same location since 1979 paying taxes. The problem is we've created it ourselves. The equipment we're building is bigger and bigger. And our building space, even this building is, ideally we would build a greenfield site. And at every quarter with our board meetings, we say, should we just build a new building, move out of town, or put a small addition on, or make a tweak here or there. So every step along the way, we've opted to stay where we are. If you look at that map, one of our key buildings is the building that was a roadway terminal, and we knocked that down and put in a fab building that really helped us out. We got a tax exemption on that building. It's the one tax exemption that we have received, and that's since gone. That's 2012. So we've been paying taxes on that for 5 years since. And as Ryan mentioned, we're paying, besides our houses and all the houses of all our employees, we have about 80 employees now. This new product has a chance to really go. We don't know. We're businessmen. We take risks. We put 3 years of development with many engineers we've hired from NDSU. I don't know what else to say, but I can as a Fargo taxpayer, I think this is a pretty good bet.
And
Thank you.
As always, I don't blame you for asking for the incentive. I would too if I was in your
Not at
place.
all.
So I just want to make
I'd
sure.
ask the same thing if I were you in your chair.
Any other discussion? Do you have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Thank you, Brian. Roll call vote.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Garrick?
No.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Item K, application filed by Weather Modification for property tax exemption for a project being located at 3802 20th Street North, which the applicant will use in operation for providing aircraft modification services. Jim Gilmore to explain.
Thank you. This is also a primary sector business certified by the Department of Commerce. They're proposing an addition to the current Fargo Jet Center, be about a $22 million facility, big airport or aircraft hangar and warehouse. The number of jobs, there'd be 8 additional in the first year, 18 up to 18 by the second year, and ultimately there'd be 26 additional jobs. The property tax savings would be about $325,000 a year. All the jobs would be over $20 an hour, with 5 over 28 and 2 over $35 an hour. So those are the 8 first-year jobs. The application scored very well on our system, scored 175 out of needed 120. Again, I'll ask Ryan to tell us a little bit more about the company, and then I believe they have a short presentation.
Thanks, Jim. Mayor Mahoney, members of the commission. Another company that I'll highlight is diversifying our economy regionally. Global work in retrofitting aircraft with advanced weather modification equipment and ambulatory systems. I think it's one of these companies that probably not a lot of people don't know that they're here, and don't know the kind of level of sophistication they're adding to aircraft and aviation equipment. They've increased their level of business in recent years, and I might point out they're a company that's paid over $3.5 million in taxes over the last 20 years on existing property, and most recently $216,000 in the last year in 2021. As Jim mentioned, kind of some of the data on the actual project, adding 112,000 square feet. And that includes lab space, engineering space, production space, and office space. Currently at 54 employees on just the weather modification as a primary sector company. And we have with us today Mr. Sweeney here to visit and answer questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. Happy to be here, and we're excited about this new program. It's really what it really is. It's an aerospace engineering program. We're designing high-tech systems for aircraft in cloud physics, atmospheric chemistry, cloud modification also. And also we're doing air ambulance and some other sidelines with our engineering department. We have aeronautical engineers on staff. That staff will expand. And we do a lot of work on the science side with University of North Dakota Aerospace Sciences, as well as University of North Dakota Atmospheric Sciences. And we build and develop these special mission aircraft. What they are is they're flying laboratories that we sell and lease, sell, and improve for all parts of the world in climate, meteorology, cloud physics, aerosols, and atmospheric chemistry. That's the main emphasis for the new building.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Gary?
This might be my last chance to ask it, so I'll do it. If you don't get the incentive, will you grow here in Fargo?
Well, I mean, we're pretty well committed at the airport, big time. We have a huge investment there. We moved to Fargo in 92, 93, 94, got support from the city, from the county, from the state. to keep our business in North Dakota. We selected Fargo as our base. We opened our offices first time in 1995, July 95, and we've grown immensely since then. And what's interesting about our capabilities is there are very few, almost no aerospace science jobs in North Dakota. There's very few aviation jobs in North Dakota. Pilots, mechanics, engineers. And what we found over the last 20 years is that we can select the top people from around the country that want to come back, that didn't have opportunities here, that want to come back to North Dakota and raise their families here. We probably have, of our top our top 20 people that have been with us for over 25 years, 15 of those people came back to North Dakota from out of state. So yes, we want to build it, but what'll happen is if we don't get the funding, it'll restrict us from buying some high-tech equipment that we need in our laboratories.
Thank you for the honest answer, and I'm glad you're growing here. But the reality is we are the best place for you, and that's good.
We're happy. We feel Fargo is a good choice. My brother Jim and I are from Fargo. We both went away for 23 years, and we came back in 95. And I think the Fargo Jet Center and weather modification and our aerospace engineering programs, it's a big deal for the city and for the state of North Dakota.
It certainly is. And again, thank you for growing here in Fargo.
Thank you.
But what I heard is that you're growing here because it's the best fit, not because of the incentive. There is no but for. I wish you all the luck, and I don't blame you for asking for the incentive.
Thank you.
We should all vote no.
Thank you.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just a question. So it's
Preston.
the blue portion that's the new addition.
Yes.
Okay.
It's solely on the.
So it's
new
more than
addition.
doubling, kind of.
Right.
About 50, well, you only see half of our hangars there. This is the far west end near runway 35.
Okay.
So this is the blue is the new west addition. Our current maintenance facilities and engineering facilities is the white. But if you go to the far left, that only encompasses about 70,000 square feet. If you go to the left, if you've ever been out to the airport, the Fargo Jet Center terminal and the big buildings to the east and the east and the east, that encompasses about 130,000 square feet. So today we have about 230. We're going to add another 110.
Okay.
So it's about a 1/3 extra space.
So this is just a real basic question. The airport owns the land, right?
Correct.
So the taxes that we're collecting on the old project is just on the building?
Yes.
Okay.
I probably need to ask the city assessor there, but usually there's some property taxes on the leasehold interest, which is sort of a roundabout way to tax some of the land.
When Jim was here, he was telling how many taxes you paid, Pat, so you probably forgot that part, but I see there's several million that you paid over.
Oh, yes. We paid $3.6 million over the last 20 years, 20 plus years.
Yeah. So I think it's great, but I wish you would have showed your air ambulances because you're making modification to planes, and those planes are going over to Europe, and those planes are being used right now, and that's been helpful to that community. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any
We've
other
completed two unbelievable projects for the Greek Air Force air ambulance, and there's a company in town also at the airport called Spectrum Aeromed. They design and build the bed itself. We do the STCs and the approvals to put that bed in our aircraft. So between these two companies in Fargo, we're pulling in business from all over the world. Greece, we just delivered 2 Learjets, brand new Learjets last year. Flying trauma ambulances. And now we're in a proposal now with the country Romania. We're doing some great stuff in aerospace engineering.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Garrick?
No.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Terry and Bruce, are you ready? Terry Ludlam and Bruce Grubb will now present landfill gas purchase and sale agreement with Cargill Incorporated.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm only participating tonight in kind of a support role because I'm looked upon as the old historian when it comes to the collection and reuse of landfill gas, which, as you've heard before, actually started about 20 years ago. We started collecting methane from the landfill and selling it to Cargill in West Fargo. And still, it kind of surprises me to this day, we're the only landfill in the state of North Dakota that collects and reuses gas produced at a landfill. And you've also heard this before, but the purpose of doing that back then was twofold: to eliminate the emissions and the odors associated with that, but also to add a diversified source of revenue for the city. And that original sales agreement had a 20-year term. We've reached the end of that term, and it's hard for me to believe because personally it seems like only yesterday. But I've got to do a little landfill gas 101. Please forgive me here, but on the left side of this drawing, if you follow the cursor, it's a cross-sectional schematic of a gas collection and distribution system. So up in the left-hand corner, those represent gas wells that extend from the landfill surface down into the buried waste mass, and they range from about 75 to 100 feet deep. We currently have more than 100 individual wells, all interconnected, that make up the gas well field. And that well field is connected down here in the lower middle. You can see a compressor station that essentially draws gas from the buried waste mass and then distributes it to an end use that we also show on this slide. So you can see here that the compressor station delivers gas to Cargill, and they use that as an alternative to natural gas. It also distributes gas to a methane burning generator that produces electricity, and we sell that to the adjacent power grid. It also distributes to a transfer station building, which burns the landfill gas in a backup capacity for fuel. The primary heating source at that transfer station building is exhaust heat that we capture off the generator. So that's the primary means of heating. And then most recently, it distributes gas to our new compressor or compressed natural gas conversion equipment that is currently installed, not up and operational yet. But that conversion equipment will essentially purify the landfill gas to essentially natural gas pipeline quality. And so we're currently looking at how to best utilize that. We've been chasing down the opportunity to use that to fuel our garbage trucks or our public transit buses on the street. Also have an opportunity to possibly tap into the adjacent natural gas grid, and we're looking for the best use for us. So, and then finally, it also has the ability to flare the gas right at the compressor station. That's rarely used, but that's just used in a backup situation if the other end uses aren't available to us, so that we can successfully destroy the methane. And there are a number of benefits to the city of Fargo. Over the past 20 years, it does mitigate the odor problems associated with landfill gas emissions. As I mentioned, adds another diversified revenue stream for the city through gas and electricity sales. It's had a significant impact in lowering the city's carbon footprint, which we think is important. And it also offers the potential to get value out of the renewable energy attributes associated with the destruction of methane, which incidentally is 25 times more destructive than CO2. And then for Cargill's benefit over the past 20 years, it certainly reduced their operating costs by being able to use landfill gas in lieu of natural gas. And so over the past 18 months, we've been negotiating a new agreement with Cargill. And I asked Terry to be brief, but would like him to go over some of the highlights, changes in the new agreement, as well as talk very briefly about some of the recent improvements made in the landfill gas collection system. So Terry, if you don't mind.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce.
You can stand here if you like.
This is fine. Thanks, Mayor and Commissioners, for allowing us to come in and visit about the agreement tonight. I was also glad to hear that Bruce was willing to do an introduction of this and kind of walk through basically what's in place at the landfill for the whole renewable energy program. I'm glad that Bruce got a chance to talk, because as he finishes up his career here with the city of Fargo, I think it's really important to remember the time and the effort that he's put into all of this, and that it really truly becomes the legacy of Bruce Grubb. About 17 years ago, he threw the keys of this whole operation to me and said, "Here, just don't run this up on the rocks." And so I think that's what we've tried to do a little bit. And so along with that, and in preparation for the landfill agreement negotiations with Cargill, we just recently completed a couple of projects out at the landfill. And as I walk through those, and as we walk through a little bit more of the details, you'll understand why these projects were important. So one project we completed in 2021 was a well field expansion project. We added 9 additional wells as the landfill continues to fill up. And as you cover waste, after about 30 days, and when it goes anaerobic, it starts to create landfill gas. And again, the project is put into place to control odors. And so we want to get in and capture those odors as quickly as possible and utilize that as a potential revenue. So just that project itself, then we saw it increase the landfill gas quantity up by about 200 cubic feet per minute. And we also saw then the landfill gas quality improve to about 62% methane, and you'll see why that's important in a minute. The other project we put into place, as Bruce touched on, was the original agreement was in 2002. So we had a lot of equipment there that was original, the compressors and the blowers. That was all original equipment, and we were having problems getting replacement parts for that. And so in 2017, we utilized some qualified energy conservation bonds from the state of North Dakota and upgraded that compressor station, a couple of new blower systems, and the ability to remove hydrogen sulfide and siloxane. That's important if we ever wanted to start fueling our trucks, if we wanted to convert that landfill gas to CNG and fuel trucks. Those were 2 particulate matters and contaminants that had to be removed. We also then put in a continuous flow methane analyzer, and we upgraded our information control systems and SCADA systems so that ultimately we could probably run this system remotely if we'd like. Right now, if the system goes down on a Saturday or Sunday, they call staff, and normally staff has to run back out and start it up. So we're trying to get it remote accessible. So right now, where we're at is we're capable of harvesting about 1,800 cubic feet per minute from the landfill. We have a generator that creates electricity, as Bruce touched on. We sell that back to the power grid. That utilizes about 250 CFM. The potential fueling station would be about 200 CFM if we were looking at fueling approximately 20 trucks. Cargill discussion is about 700 minimum. We think we can do a little bit more, and I'll touch on that in just a moment. And then that gives us a potential balance of about 650 cubic feet per minute. So the old agreement, the 2002 original agreement, when we're calculating MMBTUs, million BTUs, is how we're billing for this and how we're quantifying it. So we would take the cubic feet of landfill gas measured at the Cargill facility, take it times 0.45. 0.45 is the methane content that was just written into the agreement. That's kind of a normal standard of landfill gas. Times 900. 900 is just the heating value of landfill gas for 1 BTU. Under the new proposed agreement, then, we'll again be measuring the cubic feet of landfill gas measured at Cargill's facility, but we'll be taking the average methane for a month. That's why we install that ongoing methane analyzers. We'll know what the methane content is for an upcoming month or for the previous month, and it'll be billed for that the following month. So those two then will derive your MMBTUs. In the old contract, we were selling an MMBTU for $1 for the first 100,000 per year and then 50 cents afterwards. That number was derived at because back in 2001, when the negotiations were going on, the MMBTU cost of natural gas was in the $3 range. So it was about 30% at that time, and that was a good deal. It had reduced odors from our standpoint. They could use it on an ongoing basis. You had a 24/7 customer, so it was a good relationship. So the dollar worked out for everybody throughout the 20 years, but now rather than the dollar, what we're going to do is we're going to watch the natural gas market on a monthly rate under a NYMEX index that's out there, and whatever the NYMEX is for natural gas, we'll be selling to them for 50% of that on an ongoing basis. So again, we've got the two variables put into this, the methane content on an ongoing basis, and then the average cost for a metric ton of natural gas on a monthly basis. So again, the quantity of landfill gas, we wanted to finish that landfill gas expansion project because it increased the amount of landfill gas we could harvest. We talked with Cargill again about getting them 700 cubic feet per minute, but this chart in the yellow lines just shows if we can produce more, 800 and 900, you can just see as you go across that 52% methane there, and if our NYMEX was at $5 per MMBTU on a monthly basis, you see our annual revenue there of about $430,000. If we move down to 800 cubic feet per minute, then we're jumping up another 60,000 and 900 and so on. Just an FYI, our other contract with Cargill and was 100,000 MMBTUs per year for $1, and so most of our annual revenues for those were about $110,000, somewhere in that range. So as you can see, the quantity then that we're able to harvest and push to them is going to move our revenue up considerably. So that's the quantity component. From a quality standpoint then, we looked at 3 different methane contents. The 45 that was in the old agreement, the 52, which was 52% methane, which was our measured amount in 2021. And then at 62%, 62% is what we found in our new well field expansion project. That's newer waste, and so we see a higher amount of methane. And so it's really in our interest then to pull as hard on that system as possible and get them the highest quantity and the highest quality of methane because it results in direct revenue. And from a standpoint of how much we can pull on it, then we go up and do annual readings, or excuse me, daily readings on every one of our wells, and we pull on them until we start seeing any oxygen being introduced into the system, and then we have to turn that back. So stepping away just a little bit from the agreement, but wanted to just discuss the emission reductions and energy benefits. Every year, because we're landfill owners, the city of Fargo, under EPA laws, has to go in and calculate our greenhouse gas report. So what we do is take a look then at the exact amount of methane that we're capturing. On the right-hand side, you kind of look at an overview of greenhouse gases in the U.S., and you can see that methane is about 11%, and carbon dioxide is 70-some%. As Bruce touched on, methane is 25 times as potent as CO2 from an emission standpoint. And so what we do is go in and calculate then the amount of methane in metric tons that we're capturing and destroying on an annual basis. And over the last 11 years, and this is all reported at EPA, and it's all on the EPA system, you can go type in City of Fargo landfill and it'll give you all of this data. And so on average, over the last 11 years, when we captured and destroyed 4,340 metric tons of CO2, or the equivalent of 108,000 metric tons of, or excuse me, we captured 4,340 of methane, which is equivalent to 108,500 metric tons of CO2. So from an equivalency standpoint, you can go right into the same website then, the Landfill Methane Outreach Program, or LMOP, through EPA, and you can see what that means from an emission reduction standpoint. And so in the lower left, then we went in and plugged in our metric tons of CO, or metric tons of methane that we were destroying, and as you can see then, that's somewhat of an equivalent of removing 11 million gallons of gasoline on an annual basis. So there's a significant impact as to what we're doing. It also kind of shows the heating value, or the heating amount, for over 3,000 homes on an annual basis. So we're capturing and destroying that methane and making an emission difference. So with that, kind of a summary of where we're at through the agreement. We'll be utilizing actual methane content and determining MMBTUs as opposed to a fixed figure. We'll be linking the sale price to NYMEX, or a natural gas market standard. We'll be supplying a minimum of 700 cubic feet per minute. Any potential renewable energy attributes, carbon credits or RINs or different types of green attributes, they remain with the city. And then we're responsible for continuing to monitor and maintain the existing line that goes over to Cargill on an annual basis. And Cargill has reviewed this draft agreement throughout the 18-month negotiation period, and they're in agreement with where it stands now. So with that, then our recommended motion would be to approve the 10-year contract with Cargill and the City of Fargo, and Bruce and I would be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Gary.
This has always been a really great deal for the city of Fargo. It's one of those green things that actually works. And one thing I find really exciting that I wish I could see as a commissioner happen before I am gone, and probably for you too, Bruce, is to get that gas station going to get the compressed natural gas, and then we can power our MAT buses and our vehicles for the landfill, which is why when you're doing budget time, don't buy the hybrid buses, buy the diesel buses. For one, they're cheaper, they last longer, and they can be converted to natural gas, which will be even more green than a battery on top of a bus. So going forward, consider that, because I really hope we do get this done someday. And it will be a great deal for the residents of Fargo, and this is a great deal for residents of Fargo already. Thank you.
Any other comments, Commissioner Strand?
Thank you. I remember Commissioner Mike Williams years ago when he was working with you, Bruce, saying if it smells, it sells. And this gas is selling. But what I don't see, and it's not like I'm being critical or looking for problems, I don't see the costs to the city to do this. I don't see our investment to get the return. Do you have a sense of the cost effectiveness of the city's invested dollars? Again, this is a great green program, but I just don't see that.
We do. We talk about that quite a bit. And Terry, you came up with some figures when we were looking at this earlier in the year for budget purposes.
Before we started that wellfield expansion project, that was about a $400,000 project. Before we started that, I think from day one in 2001 to current, we were at about $7.2 million. And our revenues and offset costs, energy, that sort of thing, were about 6.8 million. And so literally within the first year or so of this, we're back in the black. The other thing that we've utilized is qualified energy conservation bonds from a state standpoint and clean renewable energy bonds from a federal standpoint. So most of the projects then were put into place and financed at almost a 0% interest or just a very small interest rate, and you're just able to pay it back off of the revenues, as opposed to
Thank you.
coming up with cash payments.
One last question. The 10-year contract now following a 20-year initial contract, is there an option to renew contemplated in this, or how will we approach the anniversary date?
Terry, I'm going to try recall by memory. We do have a renewal option, both parties agreeing to it. Yes. Thank you.
Any other comments? Excellent presentation. We've been talking about this methane for a while. Good job. I don't understand why none of the cities in the state of North Dakota don't do it. And methane, with all its odor and all the things it has, you guys have done a great job. So I appreciate that. John, do you want to take your sustainability committee on a tour on top of the dump sometime to see?
I think it'd be a good idea.
Yeah. No other comments? Roll call vote.
Garrick?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. We will take a 5-minute break, come back here at 6:14.
The other thing is,
We'll call the meeting back to order. Item 29, Wildlife Management Program Update. Mike Redlinger to explain.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I just want to provide a brief update this evening for the benefit of the Commission. This is an item that was tabled last fall in November following some discussions in summer and fall of 2021. And at the time, and in the way in which this item was tabled, the City Commission desired to have some additional conversations between the Game and Fish Department as well as the Park District and a club, the Sandhills Archery Club, that was referenced earlier in your citizen testimony, to see if there would be any kind of potential or opportunity for the program to continue. As you will also recall, this item was tabled because we had a motion to approve an ordinance, and that was on the table at the time, and that was an ordinance to repeal the program in its entirety. And so what we have put together tonight is just a brief summary of what has occurred, since that date and when it was tabled in mid-November to present. I would say that at present there is a revised program or a shape of a revised program that could be put into place this fall should the City Commission desire to move forward in that direction. I've also included some material from the Park District. The Park District has a facilities committee. That committee recently met, last week actually, and provided some recommendations that they had should they continue to authorize the program to occur on Park District land that they own and operate. And so what they are proposing is a full board presentation to the full park board, and so their commissioners will talk about this on June 14th and talk about what might be all entailed with the program if it were to come back this year. And so really what we're talking about tonight is really a contingent approval for a program for the 2022-2023 season, should the city commission desire for it to continue. It's really contingent on a few things. We have to define the parameters for when it will operate. Some inputs were received on that. And then also about who is going to provide for some of the administrative support. The Sandhills Archery Club has expressed interest in helping out with the program. So you'll see in the suggested motion tonight, it is in fact approving a one-year operation of the program. However, there are some steps that still need to be taken. We also need to work with the city attorney's office on an agreement, a three-party agreement that would be executed between the Sandhills Club, the Park District, and the City of Fargo, should the program continue as well. We would also need the approval, of course, of the State Game and Fish Department. That would also be an approval that would be necessary. So the material in the packet tonight is material that the Facilities Committee at the Park District received. I just wanted to note that there were actually 3 parks that their committee had recommended removing from the program should the full park board authorize it continue and the city commission authorize it continue. That would be the Orchard Glen, Forest River, and Heritage Hills nature parks. Those are all on the south side of town. Those are outside of the city limits of the city of Fargo, but those are park locations where the program had operated in the past. So the City Commission's suggested motion tonight is simply to approve the program contingent on the Park District, Sandhills, and the City of Fargo coming to terms together and with the Game and Fish to operate the program. There would be an additional conversation opportunity later this summer with the City Commission to approve that agreement that would be drafted by the City Attorney's Office. So I'll leave it at that tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time, but there's been several conversations that have occurred since November to present date on the future of the program.
Do you have a motion?
Thank you.
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Discussion? Gary, Commissioner Gary.
Mike, I just want to thank you for all the time and effort you've put in. For the people who don't know, it's hours of coordination with other subdivisions, being the park board, with the police chief and the police department, Game and Fish, the private sector with who's going to be training. So we've taken the concerns that the police department brought up and we tried to address each one to include who's training these folks who want to do this and who's administrating the program. And we largely took that off their plate. So with all these other partners, we have a program that's being revamped, being improved. We're taking an input. I really hope everyone supports it. Let it happen and see how it goes, and then we'll continue to make improvements. I love that the park board wants this in front of them. They can put in on this. I don't know when the last time they had that input, so that's a good thing for this. But again, I hope everyone approves this. There's been a lot of time and effort and due diligence that happened, especially by Mike Redlinger.
Commissioner Preston.
So, Mike, I'm not real clear what the role of the city would be in this kind of scenario. What exactly would it be?
So we have in city ordinances where we describe the wildlife management program. And so there would need to be some revisions to that ordinance. That's also included in your materials tonight at the back end of the material. That would need to be revised to be updated to reflect that there's a private entity that would be operating and managing the program. We need to remove the references to the police department operating the program.
So let me clarify my question a little bit. The land that this will still be allowed on is owned by the Park District, is it not?
That is correct.
It will be managed by the Park District. What role will the city play?
The city's role would be somewhat limited. There's an open question about websites, for example, like would we advertise the program? Would we allow for enrollment in the program to occur here, or would the club take that on? So there's a few open administrative questions, but the Park District would be consenting to this activity occurring on their property. And then the Sandhills Club would be, we hope, the entity in charge of operating it, should the commission and the Park District want it to continue. And then the Game and Fish has to supervise the entire effort because they ultimately possess the authority to approve or not approve programs in individual communities, whether it be here, Bismarck, et cetera.
So any complaints that would come forward from the program, where would that go? Or is that to be fixed yet, or figured out yet?
Correct. We would want to create some website content and some, I think, marketing material, for the lack of a better term, about who you contact, who's in charge of taking the phone number when somebody has a complaint, for example, a member of the public, about I observed something happening. I'll just give an example. In Orchard Glen, but we know that Orchard Glen in the future won't be involved. And so if you had a citizen complaint where something was observed where it shouldn't be occurring, we'd want to clarify that and be really upfront with the public about that.
Any other concerns? Commissioner Strand?
Thank you, Michael. I'll ask Commissioner Commissioner Pepcorn. When we discussed this last time, you kind of pulled it out of the hat and said, let's go back at this, and I will help corral our efforts and communications to come up with something. Is that what happened?
I think Mr. Chair,
Commissioner President.
I think we're in the process, and I think it's a partnership, a collaboration with lots of groups, and I think we're still not there yet. And I think Mike would admit to that, but I think we're heading in the right direction. I totally supported that the police have enough things on their plate. And so I think having the right people in charge, but I think it's still a work in progress, however, because I think we have to refine when is the season, because I think we can implement, that will have a big impact if we're not, when the people are in the parks the most, that's not where we should have a deer season. And so there's a lot of those things going on. And so I would say we're getting there. We're not there yet, but the Game and Fish and the Park District and us, if we're all working together, it can be a very positive thing.
And if I might continue, there was a comment to us tonight that there's a desire for citizen engagement. Is there going to be a room for that down the road, or?
Commissioner Pepcorn?
Mr. Chair, it's absolutely. So I would say this is just a continuation. And so, but the other thing is the Park District as well as us will have public input. And I do think we'll still, the city attorney will get more specifics as to what our responsibilities are going to be. So I would say we're making good progress. We still have a ways to go. To give an example, the signage, that's very important how we do that. There's a lot of things that we need to improve, and I think we're on that road.
And just for Chris Cohen has some ideas about where in the public input. Mike, can you make sure they know when the park board meets so people can get to that meeting if they want to?
Absolutely.
That's where it goes to X, right, Tony? Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Okay.
Thank you.
Item 30, proposal from the Chamber of Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo to lease land from the city at 2001 14th Street South. And Shannon Full came back from Portugal to be here for the meeting, I think. And we have Jim Gilmore and I think Charlie Johnson here tonight. So they will clarify some of this arrangement. Thank you.
You had received this request in the chamber a few meetings back. And since then, Eric Johnson has developed a proposed lease based on some discussion with the chamber and including some revisions asked for by city staff. Basic business terms of the lease would be $1,000 a month for a land lease. The initial of 20 years with an option for 3 10-year extensions. Maybe what I'd like to do first is just have the chamber talk about a little bit about the lease, but then also the Convention and Visitors Bureau that would share this site did have some concerns about language in the lease, and so maybe Charlie Johnson can address some of those. So, Shannon?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. I was back in front of you on November 1st is when this proposal first came in front of you, so quite a few months back. In the meantime, since then, there's been a considerable amount of work done by the city staff, so really want to commend the city staff for the partnership and the work that they did to help us with this. But as a reminder, and in your packet, there was a pretty significant detailed executive summary on the project and what we're looking to do. But really to provide a collaborative space that can be used for the community good regarding specifically those users like our small business owners, entrepreneurs, minority-owned business owners, nonprofits that have missions that are aligned with growing the economy is the intent behind this space, in addition to space for the Chamber of Commerce to reside. This location is an ideal location because of its central location, but also for numerous other benefits of the city as it relates to creating new tax base. So this is a ground or a land lease with the city, at which the chamber then will invest in a $2 to $3 million space building and pay taxes on that as such. In addition to that, this will demonstrate a visible partnership between the city in a public-private partnership along with the CVB in great partnership with a land that is underutilized right now and be utilized with full synergies. So we look forward to the opportunity to continue the process and hope that you look favorably upon our request for the land lease tonight. Charlie, I know Charlie's here. He's been a great partner of ours. In addition to that, our board chair and our facilities co-chair is with us this evening as well.
Thanks, Shannon. I just raised a couple questions about it today because it was the first time I'd actually seen the lease. Probably more my fault than anyone else's, but I downloaded it from your site, so I've become very tech savvy. The only thing I was concerned about was there was no real clear definition of the term premises, so I thought we needed to get that specified a little bit more going forward. And that tied into a point in 17.1 where it talks about replatting the land into 2 plots with no distinct legend in there about how that's going to be done. So we need to be part of that process. That's all I was really hoping for there. And then also just making sure that they've assured me that it's going to be compatible with our building, which I completely believe. I just want to make sure that everybody sees what it's like beforehand, including the building design and signage. And then, of course, it does call for us to negotiate a shared parking lot agreement, which should be no problem going forward once we determine exactly where everything is going to go. So I've seen this motion that has been proposed here, and based on the wording of that, I don't really have any problem with it, knowing we can finish out the details going forward.
Thank you. Eric Johnson, do you have any comments on the arrangement? I know Commissioner Strand at one time had some concerns about public land, how we use it, city land.
Yes, I can address that. Maybe before I'll give you a little bit of a recital on that, but I did hand out on the dais just before the meeting rejoined here after the break, some red line changes to the draft that's in the packet that was intended to address the concerns that the Convention and Visitors Bureau had, and I understand that the chamber is fine with them. But basically, it was the concern was, again, as Charlie just said, they're not concerned that the design of the building will be compatible, but this change gives them the opportunity to challenge that. Their challenge can't be unreasonable, but at least to challenge it. And the same with respect to whatever signage they have. So those are the basic changes that are proposed to the lease. And if you were to approve this suggested motion, then you'd be approving the lease with those changes in there. So with that, if Commissioner Strand had a question about how we dispose of property, I suspect what he's referring to is what we kind of frequently call our surplus property ordinance, section 30105 of our Fargo Municipal Code. And that does call for competitive process, usually of any significant value of real property or personal property. However, when it comes to leasing property, is not required to have a competitive proposal process, and the City Commission can approve whatever terms there are for the leasing of the property. This is a long-term lease, and it does contain a provision in there for the city, wherever to decide to sell it, that they would have a right to buy that at the same price. Those terms, if you look at it, those terms sort of rather directly imply a competitive process would occur. The city would have a competitive sale of this land that contains a building. Obviously, as long as the building is there, they're fairly limited on what you'd be able to sell it. But in any event, there would be, assuming this ordinance is still in place as it is, and state law is in place as it is, there'd be a competitive sale. But a sale to the highest bidder at that time, should that ever occur, would still trigger the opportunity for the chamber, the owner of the building, to match that price and have a right to sort of first refuse it. And so that language is in there. But again, that contemplates a sale, that contemplates a competitive disposal of the property if the city were to decide to do that at the time.
Any questions? Mr. Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. Eric, are you representing the chamber in this discussion?
No, I'm representing the city of Fargo.
That's what, just clarifying which hat you're wearing. The question, if I recall, had to do with taxation and revenues and taxes of a property that's leased. And if this is going to be leased for $1,000 a month, how does that balance out into the tax revenue side of this?
Yeah, the assessor's office, whenever property that's owned by a public entity that would otherwise be exempt, when they become aware of a lease such as this, then they would put a value on that leasehold interest and tax it accordingly. There are a number of examples throughout the city of that.
And how do we know, I'm not saying it isn't, but how do we know that's a fair lease value, a competitive market fair value?
I think at some point the staff asked then City Finance Director Kent Costin to do some analysis, and maybe Jim would be more familiar with whatever research Kent put into it, but he arrived at some numbers, and these values are determined from that research.
I think Kent looked at it and thought the lease should probably be closer to maybe $2,000 to $3,000 a month. So, this is below what market rate might be if you were to go out and put out an RFP to lease property.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second, moved in second. Any other discussion? So this is a partnership with the chamber that we hope does well, which gets Charlie busy with his place as well. People come over to the Chipper and use that as well, huh? Plus, we've also had some arts people feel that they might come out and utilize some of the services, offices for different groups as well. So it's helping our community that wants to start a small business or a big business. Oh, a jet center, could they do that, or Shannon? Or?
Come on over, I guess. No, we won't have room for that. But this is really focused on a lot of our small businesses that are needing those services in one centralized location. So,
Mayor,
Commissioner Strand.
This is an exciting program. I just am concerned about the people out there that'll say you're giving somebody a remarkable discount that the public otherwise wouldn't get. Is there a room to revisit the lease value so it's more what we recommended and what the city perceived to be as fair and competitive?
yeah, if we revisit the lease value, the reality at the end of the day, as a nonprofit organization serving this community, we also have to invest a significant amount of our reserves to build the building. And so that's all going to factor into, at the end of the day, can we as an organization afford to continue to move forward with the project?
And Mayor, Eric, if you're representing us legally, is this considered a charity when we give somebody a discount of a market value to, is that a charitable contribution from the city, or?
I mean, charitable contributions are usually, I think, I guess I can't speak for the city necessarily, but, or for the proponents of it, but I think, as I understand it from the staff meetings I attended, the idea is that you have an organization in the form of the chamber that is a community-based organization that works hand in hand with other entities like the CVB, which is quasi-governmental, and the city of Fargo, and that's the basis for and the attraction for this particular proposal by the chamber. But I might not be saying that as eloquently as someone else.
Commissioner Strand.
I move that we modify the rental rate to $2,000.
It's at 10 now.
From $1,000 a month to $2,000.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Dies for the lack of a second. Go back to the original motion. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Hepburn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Gehrig?
Yes.
Strand?
No.
Mahoney?
Aye. Thank you. Update on police patrols, Chief Sabowski.
Thank you, Commissioners. Let's see what we got here. Okay, beautiful. Just a report out to the Commission on our traffic enforcement activities. It's the month of May. Cops have been doing a tremendous job. We've put out a number of directed traffic patrol missions. specifically focused on dangerous driving, speeding, those types of things. You can see the increase in stops, citations, and speeding tickets themselves. And if you look at this map, especially the orange dots, you can see the focus on those heavily traveled areas where we're having a lot of that dangerous driving. So this is 52nd Avenue South, going up University, all the way up here to 19th Avenue North. This is 12th Avenue North, Main Street.
Commissioner Garrick, you saw some patrolmen by your place, didn't you?
Yeah, I was going to comment after you're done with it, but.
Oh, okay. Yeah, down 45th Street and down 42nd Street and around, so that's been a very large focus. We got a little video to show you of some of the activities as well. Let's see here if we get to that. This is a little partnership with the North Dakota Highway Patrol that's also assisting us. So that's also a partnership with Cass County and West Fargo, and we're going to continue that through the summer as well.
Any questions by Commissioner Tony? You want to make a comment?
Yeah, I just want to say I called you last week, I believe it was, and just wanted to let you know that I have noticed. One day I saw 2 vehicles pulled over just on my drive to work. My drive to work is about 5 minutes long. And on University going north and on 19th Avenue heading west, I saw 1 vehicle on each of those pulled over for speeding or whatever else it was. So I've noticed it. I'm sure others have noticed it, and I'm sure it'll make a positive impact. So thanks.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Preston?
Yeah, and if I could just pass on a comment from an individual that lives down in Rose Creek, and he said it is improved. So he said, whatever you're doing it right. So good.
Yeah, no,
Kudos.
cops are doing good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we see the motorcycles out?
Yes, they are. They're out there.
Okay. Gotta look behind my rearview mirror closely. Next item is first reading ordinance related to designated passenger loading areas and related to classification ordinance violations. Bill's going to help you, Welski and Zwelski.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Commission. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about our designated passenger loading area. Giving you a couple updates on where we were at, from where we were at on May 16th. Talk about those highlights, talk about updated proposed zones, and then we'll leave some time for open discussion. So where we've kind of gone since our May 16th presentation here at Commission, just wanted to point out a couple things. This ordinance would be in effect Thursday 10 p.m. to Friday 3 a.m., Friday 10 p.m. to Saturday 3 a.m., Saturday 10 p.m. to Sunday 3 a.m. So I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any confusion on the times that this ordinance, if approved, would be in effect. The intended boundary for the current plan designated area is a very small boundary in our downtown area. The west boundary being 7th Street North, the north boundary being 7th Avenue North, east being 4th Street North, and the south boundary being Main Avenue. The areas provided will be used for ride share and cab service pickup only, not drop off. So this doesn't count for drop off, pickup only, but can be used by all drivers at and during the designated time. So this isn't going to be just for ride share. It isn't going to just be for cab. It's going to be for any driver that wants to use this as a pickup area in our downtown within that boundary. We're going to use these areas in conjunction with already authorized city cab stands. So when I show you the maps here in a second, I'll show you how this works a little bit. But the areas that I identified during our last meeting, we're going to split those, and we'll have authorized cab stand in a portion of that area, and then also our designated passenger loading area within the areas that I'll talk about. The vehicles within must remain occupied. It's going to be a 10-minute time limit to be in the area if it's not the cab stand. This is just the designated passenger loading area. Also in the downtown area, rideshare and cabs will be allowed to legally park in any parking space. So if there's an open parking space, rideshare cabs, or anybody parking anybody up, they still can park in open parking spaces legally. It wouldn't be just in this area. Enforcement that law enforcement would conduct would be on current parking and vehicle operation ordinances. For example, double parking, obstructing a roadway, as well as a violation of the time set, that 10-minute time limit within the designated loading area. One thing that we're going to do as part of a rollout on this would be a communication plan to educate the public on the new ordinance, and that'll be implemented through our department, communications and government affairs, so our PIOs that are working with our department. And checked with some of our areas, individuals representing our individuals with disability, and especially one lady that we had talked about, Jacqueline Dotson-Rod, who's taken quite an interest at the last few meetings. She's in favor of this, actually, when I spoke to her, cited easier accessibility for individuals with disability. And so I wanted to make sure we answered your question, Commissioner Strand, on individuals with disability. It would allow individuals who have disabilities to use sidewalks to get to these designated areas, a known designated area where they could be picked up, or where someone could come and pick them up, even if it wasn't a ride share or a cab, and automated intersections where they'd be able to cross more safely. So I wanted to make sure we touched on that. So these will be an overview of our proposed pickup area and cab stands. This is the same map that I showed you guys last week, just a little modified in that the area at 5th Street and 1st Avenue North, I took that off of 5th Street and I moved it onto 1st Avenue North. I'll be showing some more close-up views here in the next slides, but I wanted to give an overview of where they all would be. As you recall, these areas were picked based on heat maps that were given to me both by Lyft and Uber, as where they were picking up the majority of people in our city during the time frame that we're talking about. So we'll start from the south and move to the north. This is the 600 block of MP Avenue. As you can see, this is just west of Broadway, west of the old Broadway, multiple other bars in the location. This area will be 262 feet in length. It will hold 13 vehicles. It's 270 feet from the old Broadway, 580 feet from Worst Beer Hall, 370 feet from Fort Knox, and 920 feet from Reuters. So what I want to do is I picked some of our more active bars that are closing at the time frame that we're looking at here, and I wanted to show the distance that people might have to travel to go to some of these different areas. Also wanted to show in these next few slides how many vehicles we can put into these parking areas. 400 block 1st Avenue North, this was the one that we changed and flipped off of 5th Street onto 1st Avenue. This one would be 162 feet in length. It would hold 8 vehicles, 670 feet to Reuters, 750 feet to Worst Beer Hall, 830 feet to Fort Knox. So looking at having areas on either side of Broadway that individuals can walk to and be picked up by either rideshare cab or someone who's coming to pick them up from that location. 600 block 2nd Avenue North, this is the smaller of the 5 that we've picked. Again, wanting to put something on the west side of Broadway. Some of the things we kept in mind when we picked these out, by the way, we wanted to make sure they're far enough away from residential areas and still have easy access on and off of avenues or streets. Also keeping people off of Broadway where there's heavily congested traffic. So this one is 88 feet in length. That only allows us 4 vehicles, but this is 710 feet to Beer and Fish, 800 feet to Reuters, and 930 feet to Dempsey's. So allowing individuals to walk to the west if need be and be picked up. To the east of Broadway, 200 block of 5th Street North. This one, I'll point out that it will remain diagonal parking just on a trial basis. We didn't want to, it would be very hard to sign and remark. We wanted to try this out first and talking to engineering. And plus it'll be a good test to see if diagonal parking might be a better option for this. So this one is 127 feet in length. Because of that diagonal parking, it'll encompass 12 vehicles. It's 815 feet from Side Street, which is to the north and east, 530 feet to Dempsey's, 720 feet to the VFW, and 850 feet to Reuters. If you'll remember from our maps, the heat maps that I showed last time, there was kind of a inactive area for pickup between 4th Avenue, actually mid-block 300 Broadway into Fourth Avenue and Broadway area, and then it picked up again towards the northern boundaries of Broadway. And so I moved a larger pickup area, the 500 block of 6th Avenue North. This one would be 320 feet in length, would allow 16 vehicles. It's 360 feet from the Bismarck, 560 feet from Cowboy Jackson, 760 feet from the Empire. And so that one would service kind of that northern boundary of Broadway and pull people to a little bit of a less busy location to allow to be picked up by any of the entities that we've been speaking about. Of course, this will involve signage if we decide to move forward with this. The sign that we've picked with help from our city engineer office would be on the far right of your screen. We have signs similar to this posted in our downtown area, and it isn't reading what it would read if we did go ahead with this, but it would say something to the effect of designated passenger pickup zone. It would give the times that you could use it as such, and mark the areas with a sign in the front and the back of that designated zone. Any questions?
Any questions? Mr. Strand?
Thank you, and I'm appreciating that we've reached out to the disability community, and I hope that if anybody has any input, that now we hear from them before this is voted in, being as this is a waiving of the first reading. So a question, I'm just curious. When cars pull into this queue, are they going to be lining up one behind the other? And if you've called, then you just go down and find your car, or do they have to move up and get to the point where they're at the front of the line, or?
So the way that it's planned to work right now is cars will fill into spots that are open. I think through natural progression with the drivers in it, they're probably going to move to the front of the line as a spot opens so that people aren't going to have to back in or out. That could be part of the communication plan that we put together out to the community.
And lastly, is the parking commission meeting these days? Did they discuss this at all, or?
Commissioner Pepcorn?
Mr. Chair, we have not had a meeting because we haven't had any things on the agenda, but we do have a parking commission, but we just haven't met.
Would this be an appropriate discussion point for them before the final vote?
Absolutely.
Mr. Garrick?
So I met with you guys again last week, and you did address a lot of the concerns that I had. One of which was that the ride shares couldn't park in a regular spot to pick or drop somebody off. I think it was pick them up, whatever it was. The draft has changed now to where these drivers are treated just like other drivers. They can park if there's an open parking spot and load or unload in those parking spots, which is a good change in my opinion. The other thing is it discourages the double parking that happens when people are being loaded and unloaded in downtown Fargo. They stop, someone comes out to the street, there stops there, that's the double parking. So I don't necessarily have a problem with the draft, and I do appreciate the work that you've done. I think you're going to have complaints. I just want that on the record. I think there's going to be a lot. So I'm willing to try this as one of my last acts here and see how it goes, and I wish you well with it. But I think the people that are in the areas are not going to like it, like the churches, and then, people like Arlette who live downtown who might be on the way to these places are going to hear people traveling at the wee hours of the night. So I hope it doesn't go that way. I wish you luck with it, but I'll be voting for it.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Strand, just one thing on the parking commission. This is really, the police are trying to do this to get rid of congestion outside of bars. The parking commission often decides time limits, all those types of things. It's really a question, and do you want the police to do this? And maybe Nicole could speak to the parking commission, but I don't think it's really their area.
No, the parking commission's not related to the on-street governance. We've deferred that to between staff and police, like other city streets. Really, the parking commission helps us manage the ramps.
Sorry, Dave. Commissioner Preston.
That's exactly the question I was going to have Nicole try to answer, so thank you.
Any other discussions? It's the first reading. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Good work on this bill. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
We'll hope it works. We'll get a report back sometime, I'm sure, okay? The discussion of the, regarding the June 14th, 2022 election ballot wording errors. Does Eric have trouble with English, or what's the issue here? Oh, he's not, or did he disappear?
Eric disappeared. Can't blame him. No. I was going to say, hey, you saved the best for last, right? But,
Yes.
okay. So unfortunately, it came to the attention of the city auditor's office that there were a couple of typographical errors on the ballot question. Those errors are that instead of saying more than, the words on the ballot say move than, and instead of saying had, the word, or instead of saying has, it says had. So it's in your packet the way that it was printed. The question was raised, well, who looks at these, and I guess I'm not exactly sure how the county goes about proofing the ballots, but I would imagine somebody at the county looks at them, somebody from the ballot printing company looks at them. So there are a number of eyes that are on them. The real question, though, is what do we do going forward? Nancy had discussions with the state's attorney, with Birch Verdict, and essentially there are two options. We can say that these errors are fatal and that we can't trust the results of the question, or we can say that these are just typographical errors, that they are non-fatal, non-material, and that the intent of the ballot question, as it relates to implementing the proposed ordinance, is not impaired. And so there are two options out there. It's important to note that this is a summary of the ballot question. This is not the entire ordinance that people are looking at. And so the ordinance itself, has the language correct. And the language that Eric provided to you to vote on was printed correctly. So with that, I guess I'll just
Questions of
ask
Steve?
if there are questions.
Commissioner Gary?
Is there any option to have an insert to every ballot to say, hey, on question number 1, this is how it should read?
So we can do some things where we publish at the polling locations. The problem with doing like an insert or something like that is that absentee ballots have already gone out. We also talked to the printer about reprinting ballots. They thought they could get them here for election day, but probably not for early voting. And so really was determined that the best thing to do is to stay with either of the options we have, to say that these errors are non-material, or that we can just correct it and put it back on the ballot again in November.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Preston?
So I have voted already, and I didn't even see this. So I think it's non-fatal. I would think that even the V almost looks like an R, and that's the only word that's got any kind of significance, it seems to me, so.
I give somebody high marks for being able to look at this and catch those errors. We in our office, I looked through it again, even after it was brought to my attention. I said, I don't see it, and so then we had to look at it, again and again to actually, look at each word and then compare it to what was originally drafted.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would move for the recommended motion number 1.
Is there a second?
I don't have it in front of me, the motion.
I'll second it.
Moved and second. Discussion. Commissioner Strand?
Thank you. Even though ballots have gone out to some folks, we have a lot of people who will be showing up at the polls in person. I remember about 15 years ago, I approached the city commission to alert them that they had an inadvertent ballot question to ask the voters whether or not to publish minutes in the official newspaper. And when I approached the city commission, I alerted them, just so you know, you just voted on this. This isn't supposed to be on the ballot for 4 more years, but it got on the ballot. what they did in that moment was they put, and it's different now, but they put notices at every pole, physical, visual notices to let people know, just so you know. And I think we should do that at a minimum regardless. And if there are any opportunities, I think we should advertise and communicate to the public, just so you know there's a technical error in this ballot question. But I would suggest we move forward and consider it non-fatal, but that we notify people, do everything we can to alert people when they're coming to the polls, getting to the polls, getting their ballots, however we can, to let them know, just so you know, there's a technical grammatical error in that ballot.
We'll work with Greg's team to get that accomplished.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. That's the end of everything. Commissioner Strand, any comments, birthdays, anything happening?
No, there's an election coming up.
Move to adjourn? So moved. Second? We're adjourned.